All right, man, peace. So, one of the biggest stories of the NFL season was the disintegration of second year New York Giants cornerback Eli Apple. Of course, what the liberal sports media has failed to properly bring to light is the reason behind Eli Apple's disintegration, which was a mental disintegration, not just an on-field disintegration. And the reason behind his fall was his mother, Annie Apple, which is the reason why the media has shirked their responsibility in properly revealing the reason for that young man's fall. Anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in. ESPN has as guest star Mr. Landon Collins, who is a star safety for the New York Giants. Let's see what he has to say.
No team in the NFL is happier for 2017 to end than the New York Football Giants and fans like me. But joining us now is one of the bright spots of Big Blue. We welcome two-time Pro Bowl safety Landon Collins to the show. Landon, good morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
What's going on?
Good. Lots to talk about with you. We're going to start with your relationship with Eli Apple. You just heard the sound. You called him a cancer, but then you apologized for those comments. What was your intent by initially even saying that publicly?
I didn't mean to say that publicly at all. I just coming off the surgery when I said it, and I guess it was just on my heart heavy,
What you trying to say, bro? You was on medication? No, let's be for real. The reason why you outed Eli Apple as a cancer was because subconsciously you were trying to assist him, as well as give a reason for the poor play of your defense this year. Eli Apple is certainly one of the reasons why the New York Football Giants defense has not been up to par, as well as, of course, a disconnect between the players and the coach. And in addition to that, of course, Odell Beckham's injury and Eli Manning being on his way out of the NFL. But let's be for real. Mr. Eli Apple most likely took you aside and confided in you what has been going on with his family. For those of you who don't know, his mother, Annie Apple, was the apple of the media's eye last season when Eli Apple was drafted. You know, the sports media, they go through the ritual where the black male athlete gets drafted and then they venerate his mother. Just to give you some backstory, Eli Apple's mother, Annie Apple, she is West African. She had 2 children by a previous man who she claims was abusive to her physically. She was able to meet a man who took her and her children in and even gave her son Eli his last name. This man raised Eli Apple to be a successful football player. And now come to find out, Annie Apple has been having an affair with Eli Apple's stepdad's best friend, who was the best man at their wedding. This, of course, led to the destruction of their marriage, of their union. And it has also led to a lot of mental issues for Eli Apple this season. The media has not properly brought this to light. Why? Because it would put a chink in the armor of the commemoration of the feminine principle that America has been promoting for a while now. Anyway, let's let Landon Collins continue.
When I said it, it's how I felt at the time. But that's my teammate, that's my brother, man. I'll always wish the best for him.
Stop lying. You want him out. Let's be for real. You see that he's basically damaged goods right now. Mentally, he's broken. His mother is in full mother goddess mode. From what I understand, she's trying to control every aspect of his life. And you could see it last season when Eli Apple was first drafted. As I've already stated, Annie Apple, she was the belle of the ball. All of these liberal sports shows on ESPN were inviting her on, particularly the Jamel Hill and Michael Smith previous show to them getting SportsCenter was known as His and Hers. They had her on the show, and supposedly they tried to cast her as this witty person. Annie Apple is a failed journalist, by the way. She was on TV giving all of her vain opinions and putting all of Eli Apple's personal business out in the street, trying to act like she was some super mom when she did nothing for her son in regards to his football career. I'm not trying to poo-poo her role as his mother. Of course, that is an integral and essential role. But this society successfully over dramatizes the role of the woman in the raising of a young boy. They over dramatize it. They don't overrate it, because once again, the role of the mother and the father is essential and they should be honored. But one of the main propagandas that is pushed in this society is the over exaggeration, the veneration of the feminine principle. And that's the exact reason why you have not heard anything about Annie Apple's hijinks and its correlation with Eli Apple's mental disintegration this season. And it's a shame. And Landon Collins is going to allude to it. He's not going to speak on it, but he is going to allude to it.
And I want him to know, and did it publicly. I want him to know that I got his side. That if you cross me, I'm not gonna shoot back. It's not just gonna be an easy road and just let you cross me.
Meantime, he is the weak link in the backfield, in the secondary. I mean, when you look at position for position, Cromartie is excellent when he's on the field. Jack Rabbit's excellent. You are an elite defensive player, like one of the best in football on earth.
Appreciate it.
And
Appreciate
Eli
it.
Apple, who is a top 10 pick, is the weak link. Is that a talent issue, an attitude issue, a discipline issue? Why is Eli Apple at this moment? As a rookie, he was trending okay, but at this moment, a bust.
Max Kellerman, you already know the answer to that question. And the only reason why you're asking Landon Collins the hypothetical question that you're asking him, or the rhetorical question that you're asking him, I should say, is because you want him to say it. You don't want to have to say it. You don't want to have to bring forth the information on Eli Apple's mother. And this is the condition that modern day males in America are in, where they have to be scared of speaking the truth about a woman, man. It's sad. Very, very, very pathetic. And just do research on Miss Annie Apple. From what her family members state, nobody likes her. And I could see the odious nature that was on her even last year. I remember speaking to my dad about her when I saw her on His and Hers. I mentioned her conduct and her energy. Her energy was that overly matriarchal female superiority energy, where she was going to try to use the acclaim that had been put on her son and try to transfer it over to herself to get herself about 15 seconds of fame, not even 15 minutes, just 15 seconds, which is about all she was famous for, because she has no real talent other than being a hoe. All right, and people might not like that, but that's okay. For you to lay down with your husband's best man at the wedding, his so-called best friend, that is once again the female exerting her energy as an agent of chaos, as the Kali Ma entity, right? The mother goddess in the so-called Hindu religion, the goddess of destruction. Not only is Annie Apple destroying her own life, she's trying to destroy her son's life, and she's trying to destroy her ex-man's life as well. But her pride is not going to allow her to humble herself, because this society tells the woman that they're never wrong. According to one story, this female Annie Apple decided to go to her former husband's house and take back all of the football memorabilia that her son Eli gave to him, because supposedly, according to her, he does not have any right to the memorabilia. And she went to this man's home with a police officer. All of this is leading to her son's degradation, and is what it's going to lead to is him being out of the NFL. And you're seeing this a lot with many of these young males who are being overcome and overwhelmed by this feminine energy. And this is why I tell a lot of you brothers, please be very, very careful the type of woman that you allow in your zone, right? It's very, very, very important that you scrutinize the type of woman that you allow into your life. And also be very careful with the, with these women who have these theatrical stories about previous relationships and how some man beat them. And look, I'm going to be very, very honest with you. And certain people are not going to like this. But I've come across people in my life, and not even just women, who have these sob stories about how somebody mistreated them. Sometimes you'll know a cat and he'll talk about how his woman did this to him and did that to him. And you're like, well, why were you around there for so long for? Why did you tolerate it for so long? And with the woman, it's, oh, well, some man beat me, or this man beat me. And A lot of times you'll get to know these people and you'll realize the reason why these bad things happen to them is because they deserved it. It doesn't mean that you would do it, but we've all run into people that we look at them and we say, wow, this is a piece of shit as a person. This person is no good. And if they run into someone else who does not have discretion or control, I could see how they could end up getting their ass whooped. And Eli Apple's stepdad ended up with the short end of the stick because he took in a $2 hoe. That's just the fact of the matter. He took in a $2 hoe who probably could not watch her mouth with her previous man. And that man had no decorum, no discretion, and he ended up whooping her ass. And she was able to, quote unquote, escape that relationship, or they escaped each other. He took her in, and you got to be careful when you're taking a stray dog. You got to test it for diseases. You got to test it for rabies. He didn't properly test it for rabies. He got bit. All right. Now he has rabies. Now he got to go get shots. This is what happens when you take in stray dogs. When you don't have them properly, administered to by an accredited dog physician. Okay. So once again, brothers, when you meet these women and they have these sob stories and they're telling you about how this guy used to beat them, and be very vigilant in regards to why a man felt compelled to beat down that woman. A lot of these women liberal women, they have a very low level of respect for themselves, and it comes out as very low respect for others. They run into men who have very little discretion or self-control, and they end up getting into these physical altercations, and they will try to bring it to you if you allow it. And this is what happened to Eli Apple's stepdad, and it has had a trickle-down effect to Eli Apple. Once again, Kali Ma, the goddess of destruction. The woman is an agent of chaos if you allow it. All right? But be very careful with these sob story broads, man.
To be honest with you, man, he has all the talent in the world. He's fantastic at it. He's done everything he needs to do. I think it's more to him that his personal relationships off the field is what's bothering him on the field.
Obviously, he's alluding to the situation that I just detailed with his mother, his stepdad, also his siblings. I mean, and again, when you are a parent, you're a caretaker. You have to make decisions not just for yourself, but you have to make decisions for your children. You have to, sometimes a person who's in charge of another person's life, they have to understand that I'm not going to do this because not just how it's going to affect me, but how it's going to affect my child. If you grow up and you're the oldest child and you have siblings, you might not do something because of how it might affect your siblings. That's called thinking on a macrocosmic level. It's not just about you. So Eli Apple's mother clearly was not able to do this, and it's not a surprise because her being a liberal woman, I've gone over this numerous times on this channel. The liberal woman is all about self-aggrandizement. That's why, once again, brothers, when you're dealing with these females, make sure that you examine them very carefully. Not just physically when you're in the bedroom with them, mentally. Because the liberal woman, the woman period, will reveal certain things to you that you have to listen to. You have to hearken when they tell you things. People speak to you in many different ways. And when you have your eyes open, your ears open, your senses attuned, they'll tell you things before the time. So, these guys who end up in court talking about, she changed on me. No, she didn't. She never changed. You just didn't listen. You didn't listen when she was telling you. When you went out on your second date and she was nasty to the waitress or to the waiter, you didn't pay it any mind. You thought it was just them. Right? If you go out with someone and they don't know how to treat the waitress or the waiter, or they're at the bar and they're talking nasty to the bartender or what have you, that treatment is going to come for you. Okay? If you hear them on the phone with their sister or their brother and they're cursing and carrying on, that treatment is going to come for you. If they're getting into altercations in the workplace, or they're in a cab and they're cursing out the cab driver, that treatment is going to come for you. You have to listen to all that. You have to see all that. A woman has to have self-control, because self-control is directly linked to self-respect. I don't care how much education they have and all that other shit. Are you educated in how to be respectful towards others? because that's a reflection of how respectful you are towards yourself. And remember, at the end of the day, you may end up having to live with this woman, or I shouldn't say have to, you may end up living with this woman. Do you know the amount of sacrifice mentally it takes to cohabit with someone in this day and age where everybody is trained to be all about themselves? So you have to be with a special person, and you have to be a special person to share a home with that person in this day and age where the genders are taught to be so competitive with each other. So when I saw this story, it was just very interesting to me, because I know for a fact, had this been LeVar Ball, imagine if LeVar Ball had cheated on his wife, especially with her going through the issue with the stroke. Imagine if LeVar Ball had cheated on his wife and it was revealed that the reason why Lonzo Ball was playing so poorly was because of LeVar. That would be the lead story on every major newscast across the country. But you don't hear anything about this female Annie Apple. Isn't that interesting?
Do you think that Eli Apple will be better served playing for another team and being out of the New York market?
I don't know. That's a question I can't answer. I can't really see the future, but I mean, any team would be happy to have him. He's a great corner. That's what I would say. He's a good corner. I can see that every day on the field, but it just doesn't translate to the football field on Sunday.
Is it part of a pro, whatever your relationships off the field are, and we're all human beings, including athletes, are human beings, family relationships, all those things play.
Yes, and you guys already know the story, so how come you won't come on TV and say that his mother is a $2 hoe? She went and slept with her husband's best friend, was having a long-term affair with him. He found out about it, and then she tried to trump up all this balderdash about how he was stealing money from Eli. Now her and Eli are estranged from the rest of the family. How come nobody's talking about that? See, this is why the print media is not trusted. This is why you have the uprising of alternative forms of media, news, and communication, because these people all have agendas.
Into performance at times, but isn't the job of a real professional to block that out as much as possible, if it does exist? And is that what you were talking to Eli Apple about privately?
Well, yes, it is the job of a professional to block things out. But when you're talking about Eli Apple, you're talking about a man who's still growing. Physically, he's a man, but mentally and spiritually, he still needs assistance. He needs guidance. That's where his father is integral. And please keep in mind, this is not his flesh and blood father. This is a man who took in a child that's not his. And in this society, people look at men as if they're just supposed to take in a child that's not theirs and not get any acclaim for it. On so many of these so-called reality shows or court shows, you see these females who say, oh, well, you took care of the child for 3 years and now you just want to abandon them. That is the strict manifestation of the female's lack of accountability and the belief that, once again, everything is supposed to go their way. I mean, do you know what it takes for a man to take in a child that's not his, especially when it's in the male DNA, to not truly want to deal with a child that's not theirs? I mean, look at the animal kingdom. When a male lion takes over a pride and he kills the previous male, the first thing he does is kill all the cubs. It's what he does. So, I mean, it's known as infanticide. So at the end of the day, as human beings, we have a greater level of cognitive function. We have what we call ethics, and we have laws to counterbalance that bestial nature. But for a man to willingly and willfully say, I'm going to take in these children that are not mine and raise them up as if they're mine and love them and feed them and care for them. One would think that people would be grateful. But because in this society, the female is always trained to not be grateful for what a man does for her. And I'm not saying that all women are ungrateful. Obviously, I'm not saying that. But we live in a culture where that is fostered. We live in a culture where it's promoted that the woman should not be thankful to a man for doing anything for her. She should just say, oh, well, that's your job. This is what leads to issues like this, because Annie Apple knew when she spread her legs for that next man that there were not going to be any repercussions. In other societies, she would get her head taken off her neck. And that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, I mean, you got to leave your personal business. Once you walk through those doors, you got to leave your personal business out right at the door. I mean, all of us have problems. All of us have gone through things. All of us have our situations. But at the end of the day, when we go into that locker room, we go into those meetings, we brotherhood. We fight for one another. We lean on one another, and we need each other. Because at the end of the day, man, we trying to win one thing, and that's the Super Bowl.
Well, but by what he's saying, it's very clear that they view Eli Apple as a very immature person who's having a hard time dealing with issues. It's very obvious to me that the energy of his mother is trickling down through him. So it's obvious that he needs to try to reclaim the relationship with his dad. I don't know if that's going to be able to occur because there just may be too much bad blood right now. And it's very unfortunate. If Eli Apple does not find his manhood some way, somehow, he's going to be out of the NFL very soon. Very soon. Because these type of stories, they get around, and other NFL franchises are not going to want to deal with him because of his mother. And I guarantee you that when he first was drafted last year and she was running around making the rounds, that was a red flag for other NFL organizations who may get on TV and say one thing about women, but behind closed doors, they're looking at her like, okay, she's a wild card. She's running around typing up articles on the internet. She wants to be the belle of the ball. She wants the attention. Because that's what I saw off the bat.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When I first learned that Ben McAdoo was fired, I damn near was ready to throw a party. I was very, very happy that he was going. I want to know what the reaction of the team was upon learning that Ben McAdoo would no longer be your coach.
Well, now they're going into some Giants sports talk. I really just wanted to touch on the Eli Apple issue and just bring it to brothers' attention who may not have been aware of it. It was a major issue last week. I was unable to cover it last week. But just stay on top of it, brothers. When you have these various females who come into your life, they all have different energies on them. They all have different baggage on them. And if you have your own baggage as a man, you should not really be dealing with a woman. Make sure that you have your own shit in order so that when the woman comes into your life, I guarantee you she's bringing some baggage. But if you have your own baggage, it's going to be hard to see the baggage that she has. So that's why I tell brothers, a lot of brothers shouldn't even have a woman, because a woman is a headache. She's bringing a lot of that confusing energy. And if you're not aware and not mentally acute, she is going to bring a lot of nonsense into your life. And you see this man, Eli Apple's stepdad, who is the person who gave him the surname Apple. Now he has been pretty much disenfranchised and marginalized. Why? Because now the creation that, the seed that he planted in that boy to grow up and become successful has borne fruit, and now the mother wants to take all the credit. And we're seeing that all over the place. So just please scrutinize everyone that's in your life, not just the woman, but other men as well, your so-called friends or whoever. Not to the point of paranoia, but that's just a part of living life with a ruling class mentality. It keeps you out of a lot of bullshit. You should be auditing everybody in your life, man. Everybody in your life, you got to audit them. What positivity are they bringing to the table? What are they adding to your life as opposed to what they're subtracting from your life? Life is like an accounting ledger. Are you on the plus side or are you on the minus side? If you're on the minus side, I got to cut you out. You got to go. All right? And you'll find that if you take that approach to life, it takes a lot of the drama out of your life. A lot of times you run into these women talking about, oh, I just wanted to bring some spice into your life. Well, bitch, if I want spice in my life, I'll go to the Mexican restaurant. I don't need you bringing no fucking spice into my life. All right? Your job is to bring two things into my life, both starting with P. Peace and pussy. That's your job. Okay? If you ain't bringing them two things, you got to go. But anyway, brothers, peace.